He had seen blood. He had seen bullets. But he had never seen eyes like those. Eyes that belonged to a 12-year-old girl named Oksana, too tired to cry, too brave to beg. Sylvester Stallone didn't expect that. Not here, not today. The snow outside the orphanage was thick and quiet, like a secret trying to stay buried. But inside, there was noise, the soft, restrained kind. Little feet tapping linoleum, whispers in Ukrainian, a cough from the hallway, the distant clatter of someone dropping a spoon and then apologizing instinctively, the kind of noise that tells you trauma lives here. Stallone stood at the threshold, holding a worn duffel bag in one hand and the weight of everything else in the other. The smell hit him first. Not unpleasant, just sharp. Soup, detergent, cold metal, childhood without parents. He nodded to Father Mikhailo, the sturdy priest who ran the orphanage. The man's beard was thick and white, his hands calloused from years of building things that were always being broken. "Come," the priest said, without flair. "They've been waiting." But this wasn't the kind of mission Stallone was used to. Sure, he'd done press tours in war zones. He'd met soldiers, signed prosthetic legs, visited burn units. He'd even given a speech once in front of the UN, something about resilience and grit. But this was different. These weren't warriors. They were children, tiny bodies with too many memories. He walked into the main room. 37 pairs of eyes turned toward him. Some knew him, most didn't. A few recognized the face from posters. Rambo, Rocky, the soldier who never gave up. But Oksana didn't look up. She stayed near the wall, arms folded, as if daring him to impress her. Stallone cleared his throat. "You know," he began, "I've taken punches from men twice my size, jumped off buildings, run through fire. But coming here..." He paused, his voice catching slightly. "This might be the bravest thing I've ever tried." A few smiles flickered. One boy in the back whispered something in Ukrainian. Another giggled, a soft defrosting. "Therefore..." He unzipped the duffel. Inside were not gifts, at least not the kind you wrap in paper. He pulled out a pair of leather boxing gloves, not new, not polished, used, faded, scarred. "These were with me when I shot the first Rocky," he said. "I've carried them ever since. Because they remind me of something. The world doesn't care how many times you get hit. Only if you get back up." He handed them to a boy named Taras, 9 years old and always running toward things, never away. The boy held them like sacred objects. "You want to try them on?" Stallone asked. Taras's eyes lit up, and just like that, something shifted. A dozen other children leaned forward. The room was thawing, but not everyone was impressed. Oksana didn't move. She didn't laugh. She didn't clap. She just stared, arms crossed, expression hard. Stallone noticed. He knew that look. It was the same one he had the night before his first fight in Philadelphia. Fear disguised as anger. Later that afternoon, after the soup and the tour and the polite conversations with donors, Stallone found himself alone in the courtyard. Smoking. It was freezing, but his breath wasn't the only thing hanging in the air. Then he heard it. A voice. Sharp. Direct. Ukrainian accented English. "Why do you think your stories matter?" He turned. Oksana. Hands in her pockets. Unblinking. "You talk about fighting, punching, getting back up. What does that mean when you've lost your mother in a bombing? When you don't know where your brother is?" Stallone didn't answer right away, because the answer wasn't ready. Therefore, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, weathered journal. "Because," he said quietly, "I collect stories too. Real ones." He opened the journal to a folded page. This is about a girl in Syria who carried her sister 50 miles on her back after their village was hit. This one here, this is a boy in Afghanistan who learned how to defuse landmines because no one else would do it. And this, he paused, This is about a Ukrainian woman who used to be a teacher. Her name was Oksana. She hid 20 kids in a basement while drones circled above. Oksana flinched. The name. He saw it. Stallone took a step closer. That woman, Oksana, wrote me a letter before she disappeared. She wanted the world to know that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "Stay alive." He handed Oksana a small envelope. Her hands trembled. As Oksana opened the letter with shaking fingers, the screen inside the room flickered to life. One of the Americans from the documentary team called out, "We found something. You need to see this." It was grainy footage. A woman's voice, Ukrainian, singing softly. And then a face. Oksana dropped the letter. Her knees buckled. Stallone caught her before she hit the floor. Because some punches don't come with fists. The girl didn't cry. Even after seeing her mother's face, ghost-like in a flickering video shot from a phone no bigger than a matchbox, Oksana refused to cry. But Stallone saw it. That microscopic hesitation in her jaw. The way her hand stayed slightly open too long, like it was waiting for something to be placed in it. Not a gift. A truth. The next morning, the sky over Lviv cracked open into soft gold. Snow on the rooftops steamed into mist, and Stallone found himself staring out the window of his tiny room above the orphanage chapel. He hadn't slept. Not really. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Oksana's, not in anger now, but in fear. The kind of fear that has roots. The kind you can't just punch through. Flashback. Stallone's inner conflict. 30 years ago, he sat in a trailer between scenes, makeup dripping. A cut painted on his lip. He had just finished the most emotional monologue of Rocky IV, the one about losing everything and still getting back up. But when the director called cut, he broke. Not into tears, into silence. Because that day, his son had called, told him he felt invisible, told him he hated the way people looked at him, not as a person, but as Stallone's kid. Sylvester had nothing to say then, no script, no wisdom, just a knot in his throat he never quite swallowed. Back to present. He heard a knock. It was Father Mikhailo. He entered with a thermos and something else. Silence waited with purpose. "She hasn't spoken since last night," the priest said, "but she went to the chapel this morning. Alone." Stallone put on his coat. "Where is she now?" Oksana sat beneath the stained glass window, arms wrapped around her knees. Her breath fogged the cold air, but she looked warmer than yesterday. Not because of the room, because she wasn't hiding anymore. He approached quietly, crouching beside her. "She was your mom, wasn't she?" A long pause, then, barely audible, "Yes. But the truth wasn't simple. She sang to us when the bombs came," Oksana said. "She told us stories, pretended the sirens were just wolves howling. When the soldiers came, she sent us down into the cellar. I thought she was behind me, but she wasn't." She stopped. Stallone waited. She never came back. There it was. The wound not on skin, but deeper. Not the kind healed with time, the kind that stays, unless touched by something true. "You know what I think," he said. She didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. "I think she wanted you to become stronger than her. That maybe she knew the world would try to break you. So she left you with something the world couldn't steal." He held up the letter. "She wrote that for you. She said, 'My daughter is the bravest part of me.'" Oksana looked at the letter, then at him. Then she said something that caught him completely off guard. "You don't know what it's like to lose someone who's still breathing in your dreams. Therefore," Stallone paused, sat down, and for the first time in years, he told a story he had never told publicly. "His name was Sage," he said. "My son." Oksana's eyes shifted. "He was brilliant. He loved science. He hated movies, hated the spotlight. And I was too busy trying to be a hero on screen to see that he needed me to be one at home." He rubbed his hands together, the leather of his gloves whispering with each motion. We argued, a lot. And then one night, he didn't pick up the phone. And the next time I saw him, it was too late. The American filmmakers overheard the conversation. Later that day, one of them, Jake, approached Stallone with a USB stick. I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but I think you should see this. He plugged it in. A home video, grainy, from the rap party of Rocky II. There, in the background, Sage, maybe 8 years old, was mimicking his dad's boxing moves, laughing, looking directly into the camera. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was that Jake, one of the filmmakers, used to be in Sage's class. He told me once, Jake said, voice trembling, that he hated cameras because he didn't want people to see how much he missed you. Stallone didn't speak, just nodded, once, as if forgiving himself, barely. That night, under candlelight in the orphanage hall, Stallone set up a small ring using chairs and scarves. Who wants to fight the champ? He asked. Taras ran forward, wearing the gloves Stallone had gifted him. But Oksana stayed back. Until, quietly but firmly, she said, I'll fight you. The room froze. Stallone raised an eyebrow. You sure? I want to feel what it's like, she said, to get back up. They faced each other, one weathered by fame, grief, and redemption. The other carved by silence, loss, and fire. He tapped her gloves lightly. Go easy on me. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Once, like a fighter, like her mother. The match didn't last long. Oksana stepped forward, fists raised, not stiffly, intentionally. Her footwork was clumsy, but her posture, solid. She was standing in front of a man 5 times her age, 50 times her fame, and she didn't flinch. Stallone let her jab once, lightly, then again, and then she stopped. I don't want to hit you, she whispered. You already did, he said, just by standing up. The room was silent, but not cold. The other children didn't cheer. They watched. Something sacred had happened, not a fight, a declaration. She wasn't fighting him. She was fighting the memory, and she had won. That night, Stallone couldn't sleep again. He lay on the cot, with his coat still on, staring at the ceiling that held more prayers than paint. The letter from Elena rested on the table. Oksana had read it again after the match. Her hands didn't shake this time. Her eyes, though, had stayed wet long after the others had gone to bed. But peace was temporary. The next morning, the priest called a meeting in the office. I received word this morning, Father Mikhailo said, eyes fixed on Stallone. Someone leaked your visit. Stallone sighed. Paparazzi? Worse, the priest said. The regional commander. The documentary team had posted a short clip, just 10 seconds. Taras, laughing in slow motion, the gloves raised. Innocent. Beautiful. But the internet never keeps anything to itself. And in a country still raw from war, still tangled in politics, visibility was dangerous. They'll shut us down if they think we're using the children for publicity, the priest warned. We'll lose funding, or worse. Stallone stood. I'll make a statement. Pull the video. We'll fix it. Jake, the younger filmmaker, shook his head. It's too late. It's already been reposted 1,000 times. Therefore, that afternoon Stallone made a call, not to his agent, not to his lawyer, to a woman named Natalia, the director of a humanitarian initiative he had funded years earlier, now based in Warsaw. I need help, he said. 3 hours later, she arrived, by train and by grit. With her came legal protection, documents, emergency appeals. More than that, she came with options. But there was one child not on the official list. Oksana. Her records were missing. Her birth certificate, destroyed. Her ID, never issued. To the Ukrainian government, She didn't exist, which meant she couldn't be adopted. She couldn't travel. She couldn't even be moved legally from the premises. And that's when Stallone saw it. This wasn't just about comforting broken children. This was about saving one. Flashback. Stallone's fight that never ended. Back in 1987, after Over the Top, Stallone visited a rehabilitation center for injured veterans. One man, a double amputee named Briggs, had refused all therapy. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't move. Until Stallone handed him a pen and asked, "If you can't walk or talk, then write. Punch the world with words." 6 months later, Briggs had published a book of poetry. But it wasn't about war. It was about his daughter, the one he couldn't hold. Stallone kept one poem from that book. He had it still. Therefore, that evening he read it aloud in the dining hall. No spotlight, no camera. Just a flashlight and a folded paper. He read it slowly, with grit in his voice. She walks without sound, carries silence like a shield. But her eyes, they speak war, and her smile reveals the peace I couldn't find. When he finished, there was no applause. Only a breath that everyone took. Together. After the reading, Jake approached him. "I found something else," he said. He handed Stallone a second USB. It was a video never meant to be seen. Not from Olena, from the day after the bombing. A soldier's phone. Footage of a woman leading children through rubble. Her voice trembling. Olena. Alive. But here was the twist. She wasn't just rescuing children. She was speaking into the camera. "My name is Olena Mironenko. If anyone sees this, tell my daughter Oksana. She must forgive me. I gave her up to save the others, but I never left her. I'm still here." The screen went black. No timestamp, no confirmation, just hope, wrapped in pain. And one more thing, coordinates. On the edge of the Luhansk region, near a still contested zone. Therefore, Stallone turned to Father Mikhailo. "I need a car, and someone who knows the roads." The priest's eyes widened. "You can't go there. It's dangerous." "I've been in worse," Stallone said. "No," the priest replied. "You've played worse." Stallone standing outside the orphanage at dawn, the wind cutting against his coat. The gloves, now too small for his hands, tied around his belt. Behind him, Oksana stands in the doorway. Still, watching. He turns. "I'm not promising anything," he says. "I don't want promises," she answers. "Just try." He nods. Once. Then disappears into the morning mist, chasing a ghost who may still be real. The road to Luhansk wasn't a road. It was more like memory. Broken, patched, unsure of where it was going. Stallone sat in the back of an old van, guided by a man named Danilo, former soldier turned volunteer, with eyes too quiet for someone still in his 30s. Snow gave way to slush. Slush turned to mud. The van shook with every rut in the earth, but neither man complained. The closer they got, the more the world felt faded. Color disappeared. Sound became muffled. Only purpose remained. They reached the coordinates near dusk. What was once a school now looked like a wound. Collapsed walls, scorched desks, and in the back, a cellar, just like the one from Olena's video. Danilo raised a hand. "There," he said. A shadow moved behind a shattered doorframe. Stallone stepped forward slowly. No weapon, no words, just the gloves tied to his belt and the prayer he didn't know he still remembered. And then, she appeared. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. Olena. Her eyes, same shape as Oksana's. Her hands, covered in dirt, but still moving with command. She froze when she saw him. "You're Stallone?" she asked in Ukrainian accented English. "Sometimes," he said. "Today, I'm just a messenger." She didn't smile, but she didn't run either. He told her everything, the orphanage, the letter, the match, and most of all, Oksana. Oksana shook her head. I can't leave. I take care of children here, the ones no one else reaches. But your daughter, she survived because I left her. Silence. Snow began to fall again, soft and surreal. Stallone stepped closer. She forgave you, he said, before she even knew you were alive. Oksana's breath caught. I dream of her voice, but I don't remember how it sounds anymore. He took the gloves from his belt and handed them to her. She said they made her feel strong. Oksana held them like relics. Therefore, Oksana made a choice. She handed the gloves back. Take these, she said. Bring them to her again. Tell her, I never stopped fighting. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a photograph. Oksana, age 6, asleep in her arms. Give her this. 2 days later, the van pulled into the orphanage courtyard. Oksana was there, waiting, no words, just eyes. When Stallone stepped out, he didn't speak either. He just knelt, placed the photograph in her hands, and whispered, She remembers. Oksana pressed the photo to her chest, and for the first time in years, she cried. Not with shame, not in fear, with release. In the closing scene of the documentary, Stallone narrates over black and white footage of the orphanage. Sometimes the fights we never wanted become the ones that define us. Not because we won, but because we showed up. We stood in the ring. We looked pain in the eye and didn't blink. Oksana isn't a victim. She's a fighter, and her story, like so many others, deserves more than silence. So to anyone out there watching, find someone who's still standing and stand with them. Oksana in the same room from the beginning, but this time she's reading her story aloud to a new group of children, new faces, new fears. The gloves now hang on the wall, not as trophies, as proof that some fights aren't won with fists. They're won with truth. And sometimes, the strongest punch you'll ever throw is letting someone else believe they can stand again. Thank you so much for watching. Your time means everything to us, and we hope this story moved you as much as it moved us. If it did, please consider leaving a comment, sharing the video, and subscribing to the channel, because powerful stories deserve to be heard. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never underestimate the impact of one small act of courage.